Hi, welcome to Expert Gate family. I'm Dr. Mohammad Riyad, Director of Global Research here at Expert Gate. It is real pleasure to have you with us today, our interview
Thank
session.
you.
The purpose of this interview, we would love to hear about your journey, your work experience, and how you would love to involve at Expert Gate community. As you are currently working as an investment director in quantitative equity, we believe your experience, expertise will be invaluable for our community. So let's start today our interview session. Mr. Raja, I want to ask you, could you please share your professional journey and what inspired you to specialize in your field? Thank you.
Sure, no problems. So my journey has been a very quantitative one. I did undergraduate studies in mathematics. I originally started pursuing an actuarial career. And dare I say, I always remark, I've been a data scientist since long before it's been sexy to be a data scientist. So I worked in a variety of different roles and was fortunate enough to be able to be part of Vanguard's team. And they had only been operating for 1 year, managing money when I joined them. And what I think I found interesting, and I've really sort of grown out from that, is hands-on portfolio management across a variety of different styles of investment management, from index portfolio management. I set up a number of the smart beta funds for Vanguard. It was fascinating having discussions with clients around understanding what is it that they wanted, discussing with MSCI and FTSE around, right, you fellas have to build an index to help it, and then actually implementing the portfolio and reporting back to the clients. And from that, I was at Vanguard for nearly 14 years. It was an interesting journey. I've been very fortunate. I've run Australian equity portfolios, global equity portfolios, about $30 odd billion worth of portfolios. My background being in mathematics and fixed income, I actually ran the fixed income team for quite a while. I always love to remark that good fixed income portfolio managers make good equity portfolio managers, but not necessarily the other way around. And I also set up all of Vanguard's multi-asset class portfolios and the process around asset allocation and how the investment strategy, what they coin now the investment strategy group. After leaving Vanguard, like I was saying to you earlier, I was going to start a PhD around the whole challenges on index rebalancing. So I have had a fascinating interaction between the real world and the academic for quite some time. I did postgraduate studies in quantitative finance at the University of Melbourne. Was one of their first postgrad finance, pure finance courses that they'd established back in the mid-90s. And I always stayed in touch with Melbourne University and all of that. And between the CFA Institute and there's another professional body which you may have heard of called the Institute for Quantitative Research in Finance, or Q Group. I'm on the Melbourne subcommittee for Q Group with Oscar Tian and Lawrence, my colleague who runs the quant team. And half the reason I reached out, what I've found really motivating after leaving Vanguard, was Chief Investment Officer for one of the smaller industry funds called Lucrative. And again, there was some interesting challenges. They had a management restructure. I had to leave, and then got involved in setting up my own boutique investment business, which focused on the way that I believe the best way to use quant factors to construct portfolios. And it's gone through some interesting iterations. And along the way, I've also been quite involved through the Q Group and the CFA Institute, between interesting enough, Monash University, RMIT, and Swinburne University, doing, and La Trobe, and even some guest lecturing over there. So I've got a good understanding, I believe, bringing that, and that's what the academics loved as well. I kind of brought that practical knowledge to the content that they were providing, particularly the postgraduate content as well. And that's the interesting challenge, I believe, is how to combine, I think, the information. I've seen both of my children at university now. I wind up both of them. Don't say to a quant dad, I hate maths. My daughter is on an academic scholarship over at Rutgers University doing political studies. you picked the right semester to be in the US doing political studies, haven't you? And my son does media studies and film studies. So, but what I've observed, and I've seen the same with the universities here, is I think the really interesting challenge is just the nature of how information comes together and is shared and utilized in courses, and getting the right balance on all those sorts of things. Hopefully that brings you sort of up to date on what I'm currently sort of doing. And then, like I said, I'm currently working in IFM's quantitative equity team, and it's been interesting kind of bringing all of that together as well.
Thank you so much. We are honored. I believe the experience you have, it's really, really incredible. I want to ask, what project or partnership are you most excited to explore through ExpertGate platform? Yeah.
It's an interesting one. I think a combination of I'm interested to understand the other experts you've got on the panel around collaborating ideas on particularly evolving, I suppose, portfolio construction processes, but then also some of the content that goes into university courses as well that relates to all of that. And I think bringing sort of, always ensuring the university's got leading edge ideas and concepts as part of their course content.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. So regarding the ExpertGate, we are focusing on the R&D, research and development. So would you like to contribute, the R&D sector, like the research and development, because you are in particular investment area? How can you want to contribute there?
I think where it to contribute is around, and I've seen it. It's an interesting one, sort of hands-on, is around the types of information and the data that's used and how it's provided. I've been fortunate enough to use a variety between, Refinitiv, Bloomberg, FactSet. They've all got their own interesting challenges as to how you utilize their information to be able to, analyze and construct portfolios. And, that's one of the things I sort of see. Having used all of the different applications, they all have their own interesting foibles, and how you actually utilize it in the real world as well as I think, and it's, dare I say, an interesting challenge around different practitioners do get fixated. You've got to use it this way, and aren't necessarily open to ideas on, well, there are other alternatives out there. And I think that's an interesting challenge in itself, how you communicate and share that type of sort of thing as well.
So it's like, that ExpertGate, we have, the planning 2035 ExpertGate, more than 50,000 researchers, they will work on the ExpertGate. And we are at the moment developing virtual research lab for our researchers.
Sure.
So that researchers around the world, they can access resources.
Yes.
So what is your opinion? It's like, ExpertGate try to, address the gap, because especially if you look the underdeveloping countries, so many researchers, they have expertise, but they don't have resource. But we experts understand, we can connect them and we can give them the opportunity.
I think where the interesting challenge is, particularly with some of the academics, they've got good, I think, theoretical knowledge, but it's that understanding of how to take it to the real world, and that's the skill that we can kind of I can bring on board. And particularly, I've seen, there's a number of different Society of Quantitative Analysts in the United States, or there's another big quant organization in Europe that has that. It's almost like the trading challenge sort of thing, and but everyone's just web scraping whatever type of information they can to try and pick the stocks. And it's like, yeah, that's not how you do it in the real world, gentlemen. And these are the other things you need. Although this is the fascinating thing, isn't it? My colleague Lawrence has actually shown us this very flash AI tool that he's working on around, surprise, surprise, it's all web scraping, but it's all looking at different types of ESG data, because that's, I think, the challenge around how to try and get different data providers almost giving you conflicting information on the same companies. And how do you ascertain what's useful information and what's not? And those are the types of things. I'm happy to share with you a paper that I've presented a few times between the Q group and also the universities around, I think, the interesting challenges incorporating ESG data and quant data to construct portfolios, particularly how to resolve circumstances where, different factors give you conflicting signals as to, it's a good, dare I say, Tesla's a good example. Does that make sense? That's the sort of thing that I'm thinking about as well. Yeah.
Thank you. As you have a wealth of experience on your field, what is your advice for the future generation if they want to also follow your footsteps?
Do you know the interesting thing? Because I've had students ask me this a lot. Oh, it's almost, who do I speak to at Vanguard to get a job in portfolio management? And I said, I see, it came up in discussion the other week with an academic colleague. I've almost been encouraging students these days to consider how, if they're sort of thinking that the nature of the technology is changing investment management and the types of work, particularly what the graduates would do, because of course is almost being replaced by the technology these days. Would it be of interest to students, I've said to them, to contemplate pursuing financial advice in a different sort of way? You've almost seen what Vanguard's trying to do to automate it, but you're just seeing almost now a cohort of people moving into retirement phase with large accumulated savings, and they genuinely need people who go, what do I do with it? How do I ensure that I invest it correctly? And I see the nature of the role of the financial advisor really changing over time, particularly as you're seeing retirees move into retirement with larger balances. And with my old actuarial hat on, you're going to outlive the actuary's assumptions on how long you think you're going to require that money for and how to ensure that you manage it. That I see is going to be a constantly growing role and need to help people in that type of space, particularly people in retirement stage. And so financial advice and financial advisory work, not just, flogging someone's strategy, but really an investment manager strategy, but helping people understand what are the natures of their wanting to do, particularly because people are now living longer in retirement, ensuring that they can meet all those sorts of things. That's the sort of, I believe, real growth area that is going to be in the financial space.
Thank you so much for your time today.